Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Just Daf It. Today's Nazir Daf Lamed Vav, number 36. I was away in the morning. I take my daughter to see the doctor. So, I'm back here in the afternoon a little bit late. Let's get started. The bottom Lamed Ham Beis. The two dots, 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabbi Abau, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Kol Yisurin Torah. In Heter Mistaraf L'Isra, Chut Misri Nazir Shrei Amar Torah Mishras. Right, we saw in the Mishnah, Rabbi Kiva said, the Mishnah Shnia, the real halacha, is that, for sake of simplicity, I'm going to go with the article's explanation of what Mishras really is. What Rabbi Kiva said in the Mishnah, Afilu Shara Pito Bayayin, even if you dipped, right, your bread in wine, the shear is a kazayas, meaning a Nazir violates the Isser of consuming wine with a kazayas. Now, they interpret that to mean that the bread combined with the wine, you're eating a piece of bread that together with the liquid, whatever volume the liquid adds to the bread, together that would be a kazayas. And therefore, it's an example, it's the only example of heder mitzaref le'isr. Heder is the bread. Bread is not asr for a nazir. However, it combines to the share of a kazayas with the wine together. Why is it different over here? The Torah says mishras, call mishras anavim lo yisha. Even if you dip your anavim, you drip your wine in something, that's kol mishras is to come to include even heter mitzaref le'isr. Even though the wine was less than a gazayas and also less than a ravias. Usually wine has to be a ravias. However, when you eat it together with bread, because you're eating it, you're just dipping your bread in wine. Now, I don't understand why people dip their bread in wine. It's kind of disgusting. But I'll talk more about my shot. I gave a different shot, even with Ben Sion, of what Sharapita Bayayin really means. I explained it to mean Sharapita Bayayin means that he drank wine to help digest the bread. Right? So it's a totally different explanation, and therefore, based on that explanation, you have to explain the Gemara differently. And I will proceed to explain the Gemara differently in Ian with Ben Sion, but for sake of simplicity, I'm going to go with the article over here. So therefore, Mishras, the bread combined with the wine, is a kazayas. Heter mitzaref le'isr. Bread is not asr, but together with the wine, it joins together. Tab b'lam v'vav min alav. Ziri Amar. Ziri says, Af se'or b'bal taksiro. There's another isser where we find heter mitzaref le'isr. You're allowed to, when you bring a korban mincha, certain averos you bring a korban mincha for, it's supposed to be flour, but it's supposed to be, matzah. It can't be made chametz. You're not supposed to bring a korban mincha that's chametz. The chametz is not just on Pesach. It's also like korban mincha. So there's an isser. The pasuk says, "Kol hamincha shetagiru l'Hashem an lo te'aseh chametz." You shouldn't make it chametz. You kol sor with kol dvash so tiru mimenu isha l'Hashem. Not only is chametz also a problem, you also should make it leaven. Sor is sourdough. Sor sound like sourdough. Sourdough also, not just actual, baked bread which rises, but also sourdough. And honey, you shouldn't burn on the mizbeach. So even soor, even if you have part of the flour of the korban mincha is actually not chametz, and part of it is sourdough or chametz, so it joins together. Heter mitzaref le'isr, even though half, let's say 51%, we're going to see it has to be more. That's the majority. 51% is soor, and 49% is matzah. It's not chametz. It's flour that didn't rise. You violate the isra of bal taktiru of and this is a lav in the Torah. It doesn't get malchus for that. So the Gemara says, "Come on, who does Ziri hold like Rabbi Lazar? He must hold like Rabbi Lazar. The Darish Kol." The Gemara in Zvachim, I believe, talks about Rabbi Lazar's shita that because the pasuk says Kol, where does he know that heter mitzaref le'isra by bal taktiru? Because the pasuk says Ki Kol, so Kol dvash lo taktiru. Anything, Kol is inclusionary. So right? We have another pasuk when it comes to chametz. Rabbi Lezer says also, "Kol ochel machmetzes v'nikrasa." That's another. Kol is an inclusionary there also. So also when you eat chametz on Pesach, right? If you eat a loaf of bread that's partially chametz and partially matzah, so if you eat a kazayis to that, 51% is chametz, and 49% is matzah, you'd also violate the isra of chametz on Pesach. Eating chametz on Pesach, where you have kares for, you get malchus for. So, yeah, it's true. Ziri meant not just by being makdir chametz on the mizbeach, also by eating chametz on Pesach. So in El Lafuke, why did the Ziri choose only the Isser of burning chametz or seor in the mizbeach? El Lafuke me'abai dam yesh aktar of balchim gazayis. Kamashma nektar of balchim gazayis. He comes to exclude from the opinion of Abai. Abai says you don't have to come out the heter mitzaref l'isser when it comes to burning chametz in the mizbeach, because even less than a gazayis, you violate the isser of bal taktiro, burning chametz in the mizbeach. Even if it's half a gazayis, you don't need to come out the heter mitzaref l'isser. Therefore, he's coming. No, really, you need a gazayis, but heter mitzaref l'isser. That's why he singled out the case of bal taktiro. Yasi Rav Dimi sat down. He was teaching this teaching of the teaching on Lamed Hayam and Beis, right? Rabbi Yochanan said the only Isser in the Torah, the Heter Mitzaref Isser, is by Nazir. Right? Zairi said also, according to Rabbi Lazar, it's by Chametz and by Bal Takir also. So Rav Dimi was sitting down and saying the teaching of Rabbi Yochanan. Asi Abaye. Sorry about the noise in the background. Some guy decided to mow the lawn over here. So Abaye asked the following question. Let me go close the window. Alright, we're back. Close the window, it's a little less loud over here. So Abaye asked the following question. Mikveh shel truma v'ashum v'ashemen shel chulin. Let's say you have porridge. A porridge dish that's made primarily of truma. And you put some spices in, you put some garlic and oil, and those are not truma, those are chulim. And naga tful yom and mitzasa. The Raisa says a tful yom is someone who was tamei. They went to the mikvah. Usually when you go to the mikvah, you go during the day. You go to there during the day. Only really Anida goes by night. So you go during the day. And until sunset, you're considered a tful yom. A tful yom is basically you're partially tor, but you're still tamei partially. The only relevance that you're tamei in terms of you touch truma. If you touch truma, you passel the truma. You don't make it tamei. Passing means that you make the truma tamei, but the truma can't be tamei something else. If it was tamei fully, then it can be tamei something else when touch something else. And also, a tful yom can't be tamei chulin. It's only tamei truma. So it's called passels truma. So if he touched part of this dish, passel as kulon, he made the entire dish, even the part that is oil and garlic, right, of chulin, is entirely passel. Makva shel chulin hashum v'hashemen shel shum. Let's say it's the opposite, right? The actual main part of the porridge, let's say the wheat or the barley, that's chulin. However, the spices, the garlic and the oil, that's truma. He touched part of it. The only part that's considered passel is exactly where he touched. Where he touched, you have to remove. The rest of it, a kohen could eat. We ask the question, Makom Hago, my passel. Why is the place where he touches that passel at all, right? The idea is, right, in the first case where it was mostly a wheat porridge of truma, so we assume the spices are batel to the, right, they're batel to the main part, which is truma, and therefore the entire thing becomes passel. However, the same thing in the second case, where the main part is chulin, so he shouldn't passel anything. It's batel, right? Ikar v'tachal, batel. Amarav v'rochanam v'yochanan matam hoel v'zar lokal abgzayis. He says the reason is that technically, if there was enough shum and shemen, right? In the second case where the garlic and the oil were of truma, right? Since even in this case, even though it's the minority in this case, it's just like to spice up the dish of porridge. If you would consume a kazayas of seemingly the shum and the shemen, you would be chayiv a kohen, a nazar who's a non-kohen would be chayiv for eating truma. My time, it's hard to understand why would this be? Shouldn't it be batel? Lav mishum heter mitzaref le'isser. Don't we say that you see from over here by truma also there's a concept of heter mitzaref le'isser. I guess at the end of the Gemara we're going to see that it has to be the majority. So you have to say that obviously it's a very spicy porridge. That maybe it's a combination of barley and a lot of oil and a lot of garlic. So it must be in the second case the reason that at least it's passel, it passels makom hago where he touched it is because it had right mitzaref le'isser. It makes it right. If you eat a zar would consume a kazayas of this porridge, he'd be chayiv, get malchus for eating truma, right? Even though there's probably not a kazayas of truma over here, right? So it must be the heter of the makfeh, of the barley, joins together with the spices to make a kazayas. So we see by truma also, right? It's another case where a heter mitzaref lister. Amalei, he said back to him, lo, my kazayas, tika kazayas be'achilas pras. Right? No, it's not because the heter porridge, which is chulin, joins together with the shum and the shemen, with the garlic and the oil that are truma. It's because there actually is mixed into this porridge enough oil and garlic that in kedei achilas pras, which is the time it takes to eat a half a loaf of bread, we'll talk about it soon, let's say 9 minutes. 9 minutes is the amount it takes. You take a loaf of bread, but it's about 9 minutes to eat a loaf of bread. So you're able to eat in 9 minutes. If you just kept on eating from this porridge, you would eat the amount of a kazayas of just the shum and shem, which is truma. So the Gemara says, "Achilas pras d'oraisa here." Is the concept of achilas pras midoraisa? The chayav malchus over here, right? Normally you have to eat a kazayas at one time in one bite. The concept of eating little portions in 9 minutes, is that combined to violate this d'oraisa? Amrullah, he said back to me, it's true, yeah. I might plead your upon all that. If this is true, that kedei achilas pras, right, eating small amounts of food and in totality it equals a kazayas if you ate it all in 9 minutes. So we have a machlokas in Maseches Pesachim. Why did the Rabbanan argue on kudach habavli? Right, the Rabbanan say that if you eat kudach habavli was a dip, primarily made of dairy ingredients, where you put some chametz in, but there's very little chametz over there, right? But if you eat 9 minutes worth of this dip, you would probably eat, right? You kedei achilas pras, you eat a kazayas. Amalei hanach kudach habavli like a kazayas achilas pras. There's no. It's a milky dip, right? A dairy dip, maybe some type of cream cheese or something like that. But there's very small amounts of chametz, so that even in 9 minutes you wouldn't eat a kazayas of that. Eat a kasarif, a misraf, and let's say he decided to, for some reason, it's very sour, this dip. If he if he would gulp down the entire dairy dip at one time, right? In which case he would eat a kazayas of bread with deichas. But that's not called achila, because it's very sour. It's hard to eat so much at one time, so it's not called achila. So therefore, if it's not called, don't do a derech achila. If you eat chametz, right, in a pill or something like that, it's not called achila. Same thing over here. You wouldn't be chayav for it. If he just dips his own bread in there, you're not going to eat enough in 9 minutes to have a kazayas of the bread, of the chametz inside. Esivei. So the another question. Let's say you have two mortars. Mortars were used in the ancient days to pound up different vegetables to make spices. You have garlic. Now we have garlic powder, but it used to be they took whole garlic cloves and they pounded it so they get the ground up garlic and things like that, so they can put garlic powder in whatever food they're eating. So you have two maduchos. Achash al truma, achash al chulin. One is pounding things of truma, spices of truma. One is pounding spices of chulin. In front of shtei gederos, you have two pots. Achash al truma. One has truma food in it, but achash al chulin. One has chulin food in it. V'naflu elu toch elu, right? We don't know which of the spices fell into which pot. They each fell into one pot. It could be that the truma spices fell into the chulin pot, and the chulin spices fell into the truma pot, in which case both should be aser. Shtei mutaras. However, the Brisa says they're both mutter. Shani omer chulin to chulin naflo, v'truma to truma naflo. I can make the assumption that the truma fell into the truma, and the chulin fell into the chulin, and therefore, obviously, the truma is only eaten by a kohen, and the chulin can be eaten by Yisrael. If you hold that really, if you eat a kazayas of truma, right? We're talking about truma, and pras, right? In 9 minutes, Amayam Rina and Shani Omer. The Gemara at this point assumes the reason Shani Omer doesn't mean for some magical reason we assume the truma fell into the truma and the chulin fell into the chulin. Is that even if the truma were to fall in the chulin and the chulin were to fall in the truma, nonetheless it would be a small amount, a minor amount. And therefore, we can rely on the fact that he's not eating in one bite. He's not eating the kazayas of truma, so you can't get malchus mutter, right? Based on a chazaka, presumably you have to assume chazaka to say it's mutter, but he's not going to, for sure, he's not going to be violating an issue derabanan, an issue d'oraisa to be chayav malchus over here for a zar eating truma. He's not going to be a zar eating truma because there's right. But if you say achilas pras, that it's not just one bite. You have 9 minutes to consume the amount of truma to be chayav a kazayas. Why do we rely on Shani Omer? Why is this mutter? Elamai hetem etzaref l'isra. So here's back to him, right? So what are you going to say? The reason is no. I don't subscribe to Gdei Achilas Pras D'Oraisa, but I do subscribe to hetem etzaref l'isra. You just said before, right, that it's possible by truma also, right? Abai said by truma also it's possible that we say hetem etzaref l'isra. Amay Amrina Shani Omer, right? You have the same problem over here. Why is it mutter in this case? Because hetem mitzaref l'isra, even though you don't have a share in one bite, but maybe in one bite you have a kazayas, majority of truma, and the minority is chulin, so it should join together. El hanach truma is tavlin derabbanan. There, it's not a question from tavlin, spices, because their truma is only derabbanan. It's not truma do rice. Truma do rice is only dagan pirush v'yitzar, only wheat and grapes and olive oil. Well, other things are not do rice, only derabbanan. Therefore, it's only derabbanan. You go lekula. Ezive, another question. Shtei kubos, achas shel truma, achas shel chulin. You have two boxes. One has truma in it, and one has chulin. The thing shtei soin, and you have two measuring cups. Achas shel chulin, achas shel. One has chulin product in there. We're assuming even wheat over here, dagon. Achas shel truma. V'naflo elu to a helu. And one measuring cup falls into one box, and one measuring cup falls into the other box. Shnei mutar, and the Brayah says they're both mutar. Shani omer chulin to chulin naflo, truma to truma naflo. Now, it doesn't mean it's a magical formula. We assume the truma found in the truma and the chulin found in the chulin. Even if the chulin found in the truma, it's mutter. These kazayis be'achilas pras aser, right? With the raisa, it's aser. Amay amrin shani omer. Why do you say shani omer? Right? If you hold kazayis be'achilas pras, you can't answer. Right? We're not going to be able to answer tavlin. Truma's tavlin derabbanan because we're talking about wheat over here, presumably. So, or wine or olive oil. So, amay amrin shani omer. Why are you saying Shani Omer over here? Why is it mutter? Within 9 minutes, you're going to eat a kazayas of Isser. Whereas Bishlam DD, according to me, it makes sense. I mean, Bishlam the Heter and Staraf Isser. Abai says, according to me, that by Truma also, there's an Isser, Heter and Staraf Isser. Heter Jones, going to the Fishi Chulin. Right? Here, we wouldn't say Heter and Staraf Isser. Why is it mutter in this case? Because the measuring cups were a small amount, and therefore the Chulin, that meaning there's a lot of chulin in the pot that even if the truma fell into the chulin, right? The chulin is the rove; it's more majority, so there's no concept. Heter mitzaref l'isra is only where you have a majority mitzaref. It joins together, right? The minority joins with the majority, so there's more chulin, right? And you can say the measuring cup with chulin that might have fallen into the truma a hell lot. So it could be in both cases, right? The chulin measuring cup and the box with the chulin. There was a lot of chulin, and the measuring cup with truma and the box with the truma were very little truma. So there's no mitzvah heter mitzvah l'isra. According to you, the amar b'shum dik k'zayis b'chilas pras k'nevish chulin my heavy. What does it matter? There's a lot of chulin. There's presumably you're going to eat in 9 minutes. You'll eat a kazayis of truma. I'm really hanach truma b'zman hazeh derabbanan. You can't bring a ru'ay raya from that case because this brisa was written after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And according to some opinions, that the Kedusha Rishona, Kitchel Shaisa, Velo Kitchel Asalavo, right? The original Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash was Nizbato. Therefore, the second Beis HaMikdash also, when it was rebuilt, that Kedusha was Nizbato. So therefore, Truma, which is a mitzvah Tli Ba'ar, is dependent on the fact of living in Eretz Yisrael, which is built up with the Beis HaMikdash. Therefore, Truma, even by wheat, only applies nowadays Mirabanan to Machlokas nowadays, whether Truma is really Midaraisa to Rabbanan. Technically, a lot of people are in Eretz Yisrael, Mafresh Truma, but really it's Machlokas, whether the concept, even by wheat, the Truma is either Rabbanan or it's Doraisa. It depends, the same Machlokas they have about walking on Harabayas, right? If you say Kedusha Shona, Kitchel L'Shaitav, Lo Kitchel Asad Lavo, there's no Kedusha anymore in the Makom HaMikdash. If you say Kitchel L'Shaitav, Kitchel Asad Lavo, forever it was Mekadesh, so the base of Mikdash still has Kedusha, even before Bano, even when it's destroyed, it's Machlokas Rambam and Ravid, and the same Machlokas they have by Truma, it's Manazet, it's Derabbanan or Doraisa. That's the conclusion of today's share. We're not done with this discussion. We're in the middle of this discussion. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion, where I discuss my explanation I gave 2 days ago about Shara Pita Bayayin and how it fits in to Heter Mitzaref Isser of our Gemara. Seemingly, the explanation I gave doesn't make so much sense according to the simple explanation of this Gemara, Heter Mitzaref Isser. I'll try to explain my opinion, Ian Ben Sion, coming up next.